Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah fi umri esta'in. Allah fi kulli umri amjid. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. للعقيدة مستقيم إنه يحب مؤمنين والذي يكره مجرمين إنه ربي يحب محسنين ولا يحب المجرمين والمنافقين والكافرين. محمد هو سيدنا محبوبنا إنه كان مخلصا وكان نبيا رسولا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته للإخواني وأخواتي في دين وسلام على من اتبع هدى للإخواني وأخواتي في إفريقيا وآسيا وأوروبا وأمريكا وكل مكان. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أهلا وسهلا بكم وكيف حالكم وعائلتكم مع الله. Thank you, my dear brothers and sisters who are here now and those who may show up here. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Amina. I was a little late today. We had family over. I had to do some things. I'm sorry about that. We're going to continue our lesson now on the Aqeedah Islamiyya. And this is an important topic because we talk about Tohit, which is the oneness of God, which has been hijacked by many different groups, and even Muslims knowingly or unknowingly have hijacked Tohit. And this is something that we have to be on guard because the enemies of Allah are behind a lot of this, and Shaitan, who fuels our enemies against us, is having his way. And the Muslims, especially in the United States and Europe and most of Western countries, and some in the Asian countries, have a misconception of what Tohit. Tohit, they think it's just you pray, you make som, and that's it. And you make a little declaration and you're going about your business. It's not the case. Tohit is complex. It's a very long topic. And perhaps we would probably, inshallah, have a couple of classes on it because that's important. Because without Tohit, you cannot be a Muslim. There's no such thing as that, because then you join the other faiths who have left Tohid, the oneness of subhanahu wa ta'ala, and have joined in with other beings, other men, and so forth and so on. So Tohid is important. It's one of the most important pillars, because without the Tohid, without the belief that subhanahu wa ta'ala is your Lord, and he's the sustainer, then you cannot be Muslim. The other faiths, they have other variations of this, the Trinity, like in the Christians, and the Jews have some modern Judaism, and we've been through a little bit of that. We have the Orthodox Jews, they have some little quirks here and there, and subhanahu wa ta'ala has chided them for for their disobedience in his law. So let's get right into it here. The Tariq and Tohid Allah. I just said this in Arabic, meaning the history about Tohid. You know, Tohid stretches back thousands of years. It's nothing new. It stretches thousands of years. And we have to go back to ancient Egypt, or Kemt, Messer in Arabic, and we have to look at the many generations where they had Tohid, and then they had other idol worship, and they had Tohid and idol worship. They had wars to bring in Tohid, and then the Mushrikeen, who believe in polytheism, they begin to come back to fight. And so the history of Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Mystic. The history where Egypt, they've had many dynasties. But one of my ancestors, matter of fact, was the pharaoh in about the 24th dynasty, and he came back to bring Tohid into to Messer. And then at this point, you have to remember something. When the Hebrews left Egypt, they went many different directions. They were not white. And this has been proven even by the Jewish scientists. They were not white. I have to repeat that again. They were not white, as you see in the movies. They were black folk. Because when Moses went down to the south to marry, remember, into Habashah, we know what's Habashah today, or Cush people were black. Now, I'm sorry. The modern historians have kind of said, well, look, there's a dividing line in the desert. You go to the north, they're all white. And then you go to the south, everybody's black. That can't be. And it doesn't make sense. And so, but when the Jews begin to leave out from Messer, they went many different directions. Some ended up all the way into parts of Nigeria and Togo, modern day Nigeria, Togo, and Ghana, and even in some parts of the Gambia. And so we have them also in North Africa and other parts of North Africa. And then they went up north all the way into India. You have Indian Jews who practice maybe not now, but at one time they did practice Tohid. So the Jews left, and at this time they were basically practicing Tohid. And then, of course, after the introduction in the 5th century of the Talmud, then that was destroyed. When Subhanahu wa ta'ala got his prophethood, all of these different religions were abrogated. And here's the interesting thing about Tohid. There were bloody wars fought for thousands of years to reinstruct Tohid, to bring it back, to abolish it. So we've had wars after wars, and it continues even today. The Americans and the Western governments fight the Muslims for one very good reason. It's Tohid. They do not want it because the Western governments, it's true, want us as melanated people to worship them. Islam is a direct threat to their sovereignty. And they know that. So this is one of the reasons why they fight to destroy Tohid, because Tohid takes the lordship away from them. And the other religions who now have left have now begun to have worship of Tobal, the Tubal people. And this is bad news. The Muslims, we're not at that point yet. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala said that he would not have his book corrupted. And they tried, and they trying to continue. They have not. So when our prophet came about and his prophethood came, this abrogated all the other religions. Now, if someone say, yeah, but look, I'm from India. I'm Hindu. You're crazy. Can't say this. Well, it's funny. Our brother, scholar, Zaki Naik, well-known Peace TV. He's now residing in Malaysia. Expert. Speak many languages. His memorization of books is astonishing. And our brother talks about the Vedas. In the Vedas, they even mentioned our prophet, that he should be followed. So that's a strike against the Hindus who say we won't follow him, and they won't. And they've left their books. Let's go back now into the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, Songs of Solomon, as I talked about that in other entries in there, talk about the one who's going to come. Muhammad, Ahmed, they call. Again, showing that our prophet was going to be the last remaining prophet. Okay, there. So we have the proofs that the other religions and the Christians are supposed to follow the Old Testament, which they do not. And so Islam has abrogated all these other religions. Tohid is complex, but in all essence, it is not complex, because it's just telling you directly that you worship only the Creator. And it's obvious that he's done things that no man can do. And so therefore, that Tohid, you have to maintain it. Now, the Muslims today, we have problems because we have the modern Muslims who are influenced by evil machinations, who are after the strong fundamentalist Muslims. They're after scholars because they want to modernize Islam, where they have some parts of Tohid, then they have some parts to be mushrikeen, they have some parts of debauchery, they have some parts of other things. They want to be able to do many things. If they leave the Muslim country, they feel that they don't have to follow certain portions of the Sharia and Tohid. They can do what they want to do in California. This is not the case. And we Muslims must fight against this disbelief, kufr. We must do it. Now, let's look at Tohid, Allah Ta'ala. One of the requirements, as we know, is that you worship Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and worship him only. Now, there's other things about Tohid. Now, we have the basic, I don't want to go into the very, very basic, because everyone has heard about the very basic things about Tohid. I'm going to get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of that. And one of the aspects is to worship him only, praise him only, and that you realize is that is his power, his sultan, mulk, is the heavens above and the earth below. So you have to believe this. This is our Tohid. And many people say, I heard you Muslims talking about heaven, and you don't say heaven, you say heavens. Well, we have 7. Our prophet told us we have 7 heavens. Okay, we each one have this layers, and that's a class all in itself. So we have been taught this. So the others say heaven, we say the heavens, because our prophet has taught us that there's 7 grades of heaven, 7 steps, and each one has a prophet in it. And if you read about the ascension of our prophet, and the Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gave him that, he talks about what he saw. Very interesting. There are 3 aspects of the Tohid that's very, very important for the Muslims. I tried to include that but the writing is so small, I couldn't get it, put it in there. But one of them is Tohid Rububiyah. Here we talked about that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has created everything, and that we acknowledge that he is the creator. This is a very important aspect that we acknowledge, because today I heard one of our African brothers the other day talking about spirituality, and he made some erroneous comments about the Quran. He was not being malicious. I'm not meaning that way. Our brother was not. He's a very respectful man, but he had gotten the Aqeedah wrong because he's not Muslim, and he made some errors. And I kind of tried to correct him because I listened to his telecast. But there were some Muslims there, and I don't think they caught it, but I caught what he had said, and I tried to correct him, to tell him that, wait a minute, my dear brother, when you get into the Quran, you should be very careful of it, because you've made an interpretation that is way out, is wrong. And this ibadah, this worship, that he is the creator, is that he is the sustainer, is that our livelihood is from him. We must believe that. It is not the Tubab. It's not the man around the corner. It's not the black man that's sitting in Congo that is one who will give you your substance in this life. Subhanahu wa Ta'ala gives it as he's pleased. But each human being does have its right and subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges that. So we have to believe that the substances that we get today, the rain that descends on that feeds the earth and makes things grow, and also to help purify us, as in Surah Anfal 8, where subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about he makes the rain come down, and rain is used as a vehicle to clean ourselves and to purify ourselves and to purify ourselves from the stains of shaitan. And so you have to acknowledge that. The second one here is Tohid Uluhiyya. Now, here is the one where the modern Muslims today are in trouble. And I'll explain some of that in a minute. Under this particular condition here, we have to really follow. I can get real deep into this, but I'm not going to get real deep into this because I want the brothers and sisters, non-Muslims and Muslims alike, to have an understanding. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother Isaac. I want to have understanding about the basics because I want people to return back to Tohid, not just by talking it, but actually practicing it and knowing it. Knowing when someone asks you about Tohid, they'll say, well, you know, what we mean by Tohid, they should be able to explain some things about Tohid. Because when you don't know, how do you know what you're practicing? And you say, yeah, well, I believe in subhanahu wa ta'ala, but what do you believe about him? Can you explain if the non-Muslim comes to you and say, well, okay, yes, he's in the heavens above, but what is it that you follow? What is it that you believe? Here, I'm giving you some things that you can talk to the non-Muslim or to parents who, when they see their son has come to Islam, they may have questions. This dawah is important for you, my dear brothers and sisters who do come to Islam and our parents have not come to Islam. They are curious. They may have questions for you. You should be able to answer those questions because it's not life or death, meaning that way, but it's essential because if pops come to you and say, hey, look, I'm a Christian. I believe, I know there's a God upstairs here in the heavens, but I don't understand what you Muslims believe. If I sit there and scratch my head and I can't explain to my father exactly what we're supposed to follow, and then he's going to, he's going to look at me and say, well, hey, what kind of religion is this that doesn't teach its followers the right way? So one of the conditions why I'm harping, you hear me almost every week talk about modern Muslims and why I'm against them. This particular part is very interesting. This second condition here says that you must follow our prophet, not some, not 3/4 of it, but all of the prophet's commands and ways and means to the best of your ability. The modern Muslim today says no to this. As I explained to you before, we had some brothers on TV that said about the makram, about which woman a man could be around his wife, his mother, so forth and so on like this. He said he would not follow it. This is the modern Muslim. He said it's too conservative, he said, because he wants to go with his wife and he wants to also go around with other women. And he said that basically he was chiding me for saying it's too conservative. I didn't make up the rule. This is the rule that subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and our prophet gave us an order that we follow it, and all of our the favorite generations followed it, and all our scholars follow it, and all the Muslims before us followed it. He now comes in this modern era today, come on YouTube, out open, say, hey, look, it's too conservative. I'm not going to follow it. I don't have time for it, as he says. And that's bad news. He just cast himself out because no Muslim can do that. You can't go to abrogate the orders of our prophet. You cannot. Well-established rules, because as subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ma'idah, which is 5 and verse 3, he said he's already perfected religion. How can this man come at this day and age and say, hey, I don't care what subhanahu wa ta'ala says. I just abrogated some parts of his religion. No, you can't do it. Here, you must follow the prophet. This is part of Tohid, my brothers and sisters. You must follow our prophets and his ways and means, meaning you must learn his ways and means. And also part of this, you must follow the favorite generations, meaning and are scholars. I'm talking about the rightful scholars. I'm not talking about the wicked scholars. I'm talking about the rightful scholars. And you must follow them, because there's many mentions inside the Quran about the ulama inside, right, about the learned ones. And subhanahu wa ta'ala is favored them with knowledge. We must follow them, rightfully guided ones, not some of the ones we see today that are phony, and evil and wicked, and they're munafiqeen, hypocrites. We don't follow them. But this condition here, we must follow the prophet, and we must also have adherence to our rightful scholars. This is condition of Tohid. Today, the modern Muslim will tell you, no, we don't need to follow this part. We can follow some parts of this. As the one brother got on TV, got on YouTube and said, I will not follow the Makram. I do what I want to do with it. Here, we must follow the ways and means of our prophet. Now, 3, Tohid Asma' as-Sufat wa Sufat. Now, this is another one where the modern Muslim and the phony hypocrites and the disbelievers misuse. These are the names and attributes of subhanahu wa ta'ala, which are 99. You beware, my brothers and sisters, if you go around, quote unquote, a Muslim, at every other word, he uses one of the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't do it. There's a prohibition against it. It's a warning. You cannot. What I mean by that, we're talking about extremists. You hear in town, even everywhere, Sudan, I don't care where, Egypt, Fez, Morocco, Los Angeles, you'll find these kind of Muslims. Every other word, he's mentioning subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet this man doesn't pray. This man doesn't even practice many of the from the Sunnah. He doesn't practice, but yet he uses the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala. This here is, we must guard that. We must learn those names, and we must practice, and we must revere those names, not misuse it. This is important, my brothers and sisters. When you hear, man, oh, alhamdulillah, I just turned the light on. Why would you need to say alhamdulillah for that? We must use it at the right time. I always tell my wife, I cringe even when I use the name of subhanahu wa ta'ala, the 999, because I don't want to be punished. I'm so afraid. I want to make sure I'm doing it right, because I do not want to harm or to castigate any name of our dear Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't. So I have to find the right time. Sometimes it's spontaneous. Something good, I will say, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. I do it at the right time. The people who do it at the right time, those are the people that you hang around with, my brothers and sisters. Because when they go about and walk, and you walk with them, they'll use the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala at the right time. Stay away from the ones every other word, and then you see him smoking. You hear him saying alhamdulillah almost 30 times in a conversation with another person. He's over smoking. He doesn't pray. He has nothing to do with Islam. Those people, you stay away from them. They're hypocrites. Here we have a prohibition. You cannot misuse the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we do. One of the things I will say this, and this is probably advanced. I don't know, everyone has heard, especially in the United States, because there's a big movement, and we have this in Morocco as well, and all over the Muslim world, the quote unquote Wahhabi. Every time I hear that, I cringe, because the Mujaddid, this particular scholar, was on time. He was Mujahid. He tried to bring back the Sunnah. But what has happened is the people today misuse the name, and that's one of the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala. I prefer to say the Muslims in Jamaat, Wahhab. Okay, I'd rather say it like this. Instead of calling them Wahhabi, this means it's like we just dirtied up the name of subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I don't like that. This is what I'm talking about, misuse. We as Muslims, we must understand when we use the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to use it correctly. And we should try to learn. There's many of them. I can't memorize every single, but when I see it, I know this is one of the names of subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the ones I really love of the name as-Salam. I don't know why it does something to me when I hear this particular word, as-Salam. This is one of the names and attributes of subhanahu wa ta'ala. I love this word. I love it. And I remember something back in the early history of our brother, ancestral brother Bilal. And Bilal had before Khalid Saifullah, before he became Saifullah, before Muslim, the Muslims were coming to make Hajj. And they encountered Khalid and the Mushrikeen. At the time, he was Muslim. And Bilal was ordered to go out to meet him. And Bilal said to him, Salam lek. He used this beautiful term. He didn't say Salamu alaikum because he was not Muslim at the time. He said Salam lek. Peace to you, he says. This word for me has a significance to it. It has some deep meaning for me. Maybe other people, they find other words in the 99 attributes of Subhanahu wa ta'ala they love. But me, my favorite one is as-salam. I don't know why, but I love it. Every time I hear it, and that's why Salam alaikum is so important. These are the words of Jinnah. But when I heard our brother Bilal was recorded that he said this to Khalid, it softened his heart. He was a rough man. Anyone knew about Khalid even beforehand. He was the only one who defeated our prophet in war, Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And when he became a Muslim, he was undefeated in the 100 wars. He was called Saifullah, the sword of Allah. You should read about this brother. The Romans feared him. The Romans have many books talking about this man. And many of their scholars wrote and had even dreams about this man, talking about him, telling the Romans, don't go face this man. They described him. The angels came to describe Khalid. And before they even saw him, and they talked about this man. They talked about being a dark complected man, heavily muscled. He said, stay away from his army, because it was under the protection of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to make a story a little bit more on this, one of the generals, because there are many stories, because they couldn't defeat our brother, our ancestral Khalid, Saif Allah. They could not defeat him. So they met in the battlefield. He called him out and he asked Khalid a question. This is the power of Tohid. He asked Khalid, he said, Khalid, is it true that Subhanahu wa ta'ala dropped the sword down for you to use? And that's why we can't defeat you? And Khalid told him the truth. He said, no. And he gave you some other things, asking questions, how this sword was so powerful, why they could not defeat the Muslims. This is because of Tohid, my brothers and sisters, because of Tohid. And this is the Islamic story is beautiful, all the way into Andalus. When our brothers went into Andalus, you saw the picture last week. I gave one of our ancestral brothers who opened up Andalus, which is modern day Spain. Tohid Akida, Tohid Allah. Those words are victory to the Muslim. When the Muslims are under that and they practicing it, I'm talking about really practicing it, they are victors. Look at our history. When we have fallen, like we have fallen now, we have what? Few believers, and we have many disbelievers. We have many hypocrites. We have many who are lost, and we are lost. We can't win anything anymore because we've left Tohid. We've left Tohid. So I gave you that story to make to you to understand the importance of Tohid, and give you the story of some of our brothers, Bilal, when he used the beautiful words of Subhanahu wa ta'ala, his description, as-salam. And then we had Khalid, who, because of his strength, that Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this power to defeat the mushrikeen. Part of his title was that he was sent, that he is now the sword of Allah to defeat the mushrikeen. And he did. He was unleashed. He was unleashed on the mushrikeen, and he was unmerciful. He was defeating armies of the Romans who were 3 times, 4 times larger. And you read the history, and you read not what we say here. Look what the Romans said about them. And the Romans are Tubal, and they talked about this thing. They talked about the fervor. And what did Hercules say that when he listened to the Muslims? He heard them before they began to charge. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, 3 times. He heard this. He was shocked at what he was listening to. And he saw the fervor in the Muslims. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him victory after victory after victory. My brothers and sisters, this is beautiful. When you know the history and you look at the words and you begin to discover these beautiful words of Subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they come off the lips of a meaningful Muslim, it's in his heart and it's in his lips and his action. Subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this person. He does. And we know we have this promise from our Lord, Subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we obey him, he gives us. And his time, it may not come today. He could come 10 years from now. He could come 2 weeks from now. So we should understand that. Now, the modern Muslim today has a problem, and I'm going to give you a term, ahkam. Ahkam under the Sharia. I see what Mina has said here. Yeah, she wrote this in Arabic. Yeah. This is very true what my dear sister said here in Arabic, and also here in English. Here's my nephew. Assalamu alaikum. My nephew here, Adrian. Thank you for coming, my dear nephew. The modern Muslim today has a problem with the orders of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's an Arabic word called ahkam, Allah, his orders. His orders. Yes, his orders. They have a problem with this. Now, what do we know about his orders? Again, we go to a whole slew of things. He's the creator. He's the provider. He has a law. And this is where I harp about the Muslims who govern other than the law of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have a problem. And even though we have some scholars, they are much smarter than I. And I am not here to question them, because as I explained to you, some of our scholars are hardcore on this issue. They say if you don't govern by the Sharia Islamiyah, you are kafir. And the others say, no, they may have this, they may have that. So we have both. And one of the things that ahkam Allah is his law, not half of it, and the law of our prophet, not part of the prophet's law, but all of it. We must implement it. Now, you say, yeah, that's the 7th century, my dear brother. How can you, that's the 7th century. We don't live in the 7th century anymore. True. We can be dynamic. We have beautiful scholars today, and they have used it. And we have rulers too who are dynamic. And we have scholars who make ijtihad, meaning a ruling that's still under the Sharia, but help you. I give you an example of that. When I was in Sudan, back in 2008 and part of 2009, he had one case of a man who was using, this is modern times, because in the 7th century, they didn't have computers, they didn't have that. But he was making fawahish, debauchery, with a woman that was not his wife. His wife was inside the house, and he was on in his computer, talking about what they're going to do when they meet up. And he was trying to coordinate to meet up with this girl to make fornication with her. Well, what happened was the wife, when he went to the bathroom or something, she came and she saw the, verbiage between him and the wife, and she reported to the Hezbollah police. Hezbollah police came and got him. They had to prove they got him, and they put him before the judge. This is what I'm talking about. They didn't have, in the Sharia at that time, they didn't have computers. So they have to make ijtihad on the ruling on this. And this is what I give you this example to show you that you have to use the dynamics of this time. You still follow the Sharia, but you have to twerk it in order to fit it for the modern times, not to abolish it, not to take it away, or not to add to it, but to go rule under it. And he did. The judge did rule on it. He gave him, he said, look, I'm going to give you 30 days. This is how important it is. That's why I tell our dear sisters, the non-Muslims and the Muslims alike, that when the Sharia is working, you are protected. Here, her husband made a mistake. Yes, she could have divorced him. The judge would have gave it, but she said, no, I don't want to divorce him. I love my husband. I know he made a mistake. He pleaded for forgiveness, but the judge had to make a ruling. So he gave him 30 days, but he said he was going to give him lashes, but he didn't give him the lashes. He said, I'll give you 30 days. Now, think about this in California or Texas or something. The judges there, Muslim judges, start giving all the fornicators 30 days. They get caught by their wives, or the husband catch the wives. On the computer. See the dynamics of what I'm talking about, how we have to use the Sharia to fit the times. So I gave you that story because at that time I was still, a couple of years in Islam, but I had the fortunate to go to the Sharia court to watch the Sharia court in action. And when the Hezbollah brought him in there, he was in tears because he made a mistake. And the judge got him and said, look, I'm gonna put you in 30 days. He did. And in the 30 days, they didn't beat him or they didn't torture him. No, but they put him back into the Quran and the Sunnah. See, that's right. He had mandatory into jail, Quran and Sunnah studies to bring him back. And his wife forgave him. So I just wanted to give you that little tidbit there about how the Sharia work, even in modern times, because I've heard Muslims and non-Muslims alike say, hey, oh man, this 7th century. How are we going to use this law here for this? Well, we have to use it for modern times. Now, the Ahkam Allah is very similar to the Sunnah. We didn't touch about the Sunnah of the Prophet and the different grades of the Sunnah. We didn't touch about that. But they're almost identical, the Ahkam Allah. There are 5. I tried to put them in there in the chat, and it was very difficult. The print was so small. I'm not a computer expert. I'm gonna need some help, I think, one of these days to how I can put the input in there, because I'm not computer wise. I can turn on the computer, I can turn it off. I know how to get to my email. I know how to follow YouTube. When you go to integral things, I'm out of it. I'm weak in that. And we have the first one, which under the Ahkam Allah is obligatory. Under the Ahkam, you must follow the Ahkam Allah. That means his laws. That means again, that he is the sustainer, but preferably the things that get us in trouble. We have to do it. Then we have the second rule, which is desirable. I'm giving these in English. And the desirable, again, is you should do it. You should do it. Then we have the permissible. Now we're talking about, let's look at the permissible. You say, yeah, what are you talking about now? Permissible. Permissible, talking mainly like, let's look at the foods. And there's other things too. The foods like pork and so forth, especially the Muslims today have a lot of questions about, well, I live in California. I go to eat at McDonald's. I go to eat at Denny's restaurant, or I go to some other restaurant to eat and so forth. What about that? And there's a formula. Again, we have to use it because in those days, there weren't McDonald's in the 7th century. So we have to have rulings. So the ruling has been said from all the scholars of the recent era. They said you just say Bismillah over your food because you live in a non-Muslim country. So you don't know for sure if this food is actually halal or not. And so you bless it. And so permissible, meaning you eat foods that subhanahu wa ta'ala said you are to use. Now, let's get into something about permissible. This is where, again, our brothers and the Jews and the Christians are falling short. The Old Testament is very clear about the pork, isn't it? But we have Jews and Christians who eat it. Now, the Christians will argue with me and say, well, look, Yahya, we have the New Testament. Subhanahu wa ta'ala said in there that we can eat anything. We can drink, we can eat pork. And, and every time when I hear them say this, I study the Bible. I study the Torah as well. I look, see where it was abrogated. Jesus, alayhi salatu salam, said that he came not to what? Abolish the law, but to what? Enforce it. And one of the is halal, permissible. What is import is not allowed, and fornication is not allowed. But they've fallen short from that. You see what I mean? The Muslims are almost in this category today. We have Muslims who drink. We have Muslims who eat pork. Yes, they do. And they don't hide it. They eat the pork. We have Muslims do other things that are not permissible. And yet and still, again, they say, well, look, I can't help it. I like to eat pork sandwiches. I want to eat this and that. I want to eat barbecue. I know how that is. I'm African-American. African-Americans are raised upon barbecue. I understand that. I miss that myself. But we have rules. We have rules. I can eat chicken, yes, but I can't eat the pork. I can't eat the pig. Permissible, we're talking about halal is what they talk about this. Now, the fourth one is the undesirable, but it's permissible. Now we have, again, modern times, my brothers and sisters. And I have to go into this subject, and please forgive me, I don't mean anything by this. There are rulings in the sexual attitudes, I'm talking husband and wife, because you remember something, sex is only allowed between the marriage couple. A marriage couple inside Islam is you married, not, having concubines all over the place. But of course, in time of war, it's a different thing. There's certain acts inside that, even though they did not have those things happening in that time, but those things are happening in modern times. So most of our scholars today will give you the fourth grade ruling and say, well, look, it's undesirable for you to do this with your wife. Okay, whatever the situation may be, that it doesn't fit, but it's permissible. Meaning, if you do it, okay, but it's not forbidden yet, but it's undesirable. You understand what I mean? So each rule has its way. The last one is what is forbidden, what is called the haram. This one is definitely out. Fornication, that is haram. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it, and it's punishable under the Sharia. There's other things too that's punishable: stealing, robbing, killing, lying, cheating your partner, going into business to defraud somebody. All these type of things is haram. And so there's 5 of these conditions, my brothers and sisters. 5 of these conditions, and they are pretty lengthy. They cover a lot. And just somewhere I'm talking about here, you're talking about weeks and weeks of classes, because Tohit is very, very in depth. And I'm just giving you the cursory things of it, so that way you can go back to do your research. My nephew was talking about has made provisions for Muslims at certain fast food restaurants, but the United States is still behind on making food allowed outside of Muslim communities. This is true. United States is like that. I saw a thing here 2 weeks ago about Japan. I was shocked. In Japan, when you enter the airport, they have a halal area for the Muslims. They don't even have to go rest and associate with the others. They can go into this area at Tokyo Airport. There's halal restaurants. They have places for where you make your ablution. You can rest. Women over here, men over here. They have this inside. And this in Tokyo, Japan. Japan is a Buddhist country, right? In Shinto, it's not a Muslim state, but yet and still, United States is still behind. Isn't that funny? And Japan has a growing Islamic population. And I saw the YouTube thing that the area they have for the Muslims is beautiful. The Muslim, they know that he's a Muslim traveler. They direct him. And you know how the Japanese hospitality is world famous. Everybody knows there. And the gentleman or the lady will escort you to a door. And inside there are halal restaurants. You have places for bathroom where you can make your wudu. You have places where you want to lay down. The women over here, if she want to make a prayer, they have a place for the woman to make a prayer. They have a man to make it. This is in Japan, but we don't have it in the United States. That's funny, isn't it? And what he was talking about is correct. We're starting to have things inside the United States where more Muslims are creating their own restaurants and stores, but there's still not enough of that. And there are some stores that say halal food, but you know what? I saw a study on that to say they weren't really halal. Some of the foods are not. They found hidden pork in it, or they found some other things, some other impurities that would make it haram for us to eat. So that is something that I laughed when I saw this thing in YouTube on Tokyo for the Muslims. And here, this is not even a Muslim state. And inside that area there for the Muslims, it was beautiful what they had done. Masjids inside, small masjids inside, restaurants halal. I mean, the place for the woman, she can relax, she can take off her hijab. I mean, it's beautiful. Now, I'm gonna get to another thing here that is very important, my brothers and sisters. There is a condition that we never think about as human beings, period. really. This affects non-Muslims as well. We have a covenant with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this covenant even before you are created. Yes. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala says that as your soul is being created, he asks you, who is your Lord? And you testify that it's him. Now, as you are created and you are born, and now when you enter death, this particular book is pulled out. Subhanahu wa ta'ala examines your testimony before you were created. Your soul was created, okay? And before you became, quote unquote, human, to what you had done in your life. That's right. This is something we never think about. That behooves you, me, all of us. Before we were created, our souls were sitting there. Subhanahu wa ta'ala asked the question, which we made Tohid. He's going to examine us to see how we went behind this covenant of his. And many of us don't know about this. And it's Atlas is what it's called. And I can write it in Arabic. You can find it also in English. I got an English version of this here and an Arabic version of this. And it's very important. I'll give you what Subhanahu wa ta'ala says here. He says, before creating human beings, Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala asked their souls, am I Alastu, your Lord? And they all answer, yes, we testify. This is the soul. This is before, as we starting to be created. At resurrection, it will be determined whether each individual remained faithful to his original testimony. That's interesting. That's interesting, my brothers and sisters. How we are faithful to this testimony and the life we have right now. That behooves you and me to maintain that Tohid. And he says, in other words, did his actions reflect pre-creation acceptance of servitude and Allah's lordship? Again, my brothers and sisters, we go back to the modern Muslim. He's changed that. He's worshiping money. He's doing this. Like I told you, the other brother got on TV and he said, I won't follow this because it's too conservative. It's going to count against us. And here, Subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you, I'm going to be grading you. I'm going to be watching you. He has angels who write books for us. As you, all the Muslims know, there's angels who follow us and they write what we do and what we do good and what we do wrong. And then he says, or did his actions demonstrate that he lived the life of the Nair, one whose life was denial of the covenant of Allah? That's scary, my brothers and sisters. That's scary. Did you fulfill the covenant with Subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because your souls testified to that. Before you put it in the world, that you will follow. Now, at the time of death, they'll look back at your testimony, and they will measure your commitment to Tohid. So I want to give you that as a warning to help you, my brothers and sisters, to remember here. Hey, be careful. And I gave you some of the proofs behind this. Not only was this covenant with us, this covenant was also with the Jews and the Christians. The Christians, of course, and the Jews have forgot about this. But Surah 13:20, Surah 13 and verse 20, Subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the proof. He talks about that. And Surah 36 and verse 60, he talks about this covenant. And so we should learn, read about that, study it, but maintain our Tohid, our brothers and sisters. We must maintain that, okay? We can't get by that. I just gave you something. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will be looking for that. We must maintain it. Maintain that Tohid, that oneness of Subhanahu wa ta'ala in our actions, in our words. And it's very important that we do this. I talked about earlier about the Muslims who misuse the words of subhanahu wa ta'ala, the 99 attributes. My brothers and sisters, stay away from that. Don't copy the Muslims that you see whose every other word is subhanallah or alhamdulillah. Every little thing, turn off light, alhamdulillah. He walk over here, he sits down, alhamdulillah. No, that's wrong. Don't follow that. That's an innovation. And remember what our Prophet ﷺ said about innovations is leads you to the fire. So don't innovate. Don't follow them. It may sound, you hear a person, every other word is alhamdulillah, one of the attributes, the 99 attributes of subhanahu wa ta'ala. You say, oh, he's a deep believer. And then you go watch him, and all of a sudden you walk in the city, you see him sitting on the corner with a wine bottle, he's drinking. Or you see him sitting on the corner, and there's the adhan, and you don't even see him go to the masjid. When you come out of the masjid, he's still sitting there drinking. But yet, his conversation, when you walk up to him, he every other word is alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, subhanallah, but he doesn't pray. Be careful of those people, my dear brothers and sisters. Be very, very careful of them. So I gave you a quick course on this, my brothers and sisters, today about Tohit. And I'm going to cover more in depth, inshallah ta'ala. And I'll go back into some of the conditions of that. And I know someone will ask, well, what's the difference between the Sunnah and the Ahkam Allah? The difference is that with subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's given us, we have to obey. And the Sunnah of our Prophet is his ways, his actions, and his orders. So we have both, and they're very similar. As in our Tohid, you must follow our Prophet, and you must follow subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the condition under our religion. You must adhere to that. If you say, I don't understand the Sunnah of our Prophet, there's many conditions of that, and you have to learn that. But you try to do the best you can. And I'm going to also cover some other things. Lastly, the exact opposite of Tohid is Taghut in Arabic. Taghut. Here is where I've talked about many times, is the exact opposite of it. Here, the people worship other men. Here, they worship money. Here, they believe in worship of the ancestors. In this, they believe in the stars. By the alignment of the stars, they go by there and they govern by that. And they say, well, I see the stars in this position today. Yahya, tomorrow you'll come up with $1 million. All of these fallacies like this is under that. It's the exact opposite. And you remember, subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Muslims and people in it. He says, do you going to render a decision based upon that? It's in Surah Nisa 4. Subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this issue about using the evil as governance. This is why you heard me harp many times before, even last week, when people use governance outside of the Sharia, it's evil. And if anyone says, well, I don't know what you're talking about, you see United States, what's going on in the United States? They're not using subhanahu wa ta'ala's law. As I said, are they using the law of Moses, alayhi salatu wasalam? No. John the Baptist? No. Alayhi salatu wasalam? Huh? No, they're not using any of that. They're using their own. And look at the disarray that is happening in the government there in the United States. Look at the government. It's not under Tohid. The Muslims govern under Tohid Hakimiyya. Remember what I talked about that. Tohid Hakimiyya, where subhanahu wa ta'ala Sharia and the Sharia of our Prophet is being used. I am a stickler on that because I saw the history as a historian. I saw the beauty of it. And I saw with subhanahu wa ta'ala, his promises to those who do it. And you look at West Africa. We don't have to go to other places. You Africans, you go to West Africa. You look at those Mali, you look at Songhai, you look at all those beautiful empires. You look at Usman Den Fodio, his Khalifa that he had. You look at Idris al-Loma. You look at all of our ancestral brothers. They governed under the Sharia Islamiyya. And look what they accomplished. Look at Mali. Hey, our brothers under the Sharia, under Tohid Hakimiyya, under Tohid Allah. Surgery, eye surgery, that's unheard of. Eye surgery, heart surgery, agricultural systems, I mean, they did all kind of things. You see what I'm saying, my brothers and sisters? How important Tohid is. It's just not just saying it. But if you look at the history, Subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us. When we followed Tohid, he's given us riches beyond belief. And also, days ago, one of our brothers was on another program. It had nothing to do with Islam, but he interjected some things about Islam. I listened to it. I didn't get into the chat with it. I said, no, I'm not going to get involved in it. He made a comment about our ancestral brother that was literally blasphemous. He's supposed to be a black man, an African. And what he said about Mansa Musa, you know, I'm gonna tell you, if he'd have stepped in some parts of Nigeria, especially the north, and talked against him, or some parts of Mali, I don't know if someone might have taken his head, you know, out of anger, which he shouldn't do. But you know, you can't govern every Muslim. But he made a comment about our great ancestral brother, who was declared the richest man in history. They said something like 700 trillion, or I forgot what it was, some astronomical amount of money our brother had. He said this, our brother got on the program a couple of days ago, some whom I saw this, he said that he gave it to the Arabs. I could not believe he said that, but he did. And our brother, his empire is rated the most wealthiest of history. So if he gave all his wealth to the Arabs, how did his empire have all this money? You know, my brothers and sisters, when you see these programs, you have to sometimes wonder what's happening with our people, because they should go back to read the history. And when he defamed him, you know, that's blasphemous for another African who he didn't study the history, go and make blasphemous comments against our ancestors, especially a strong Muslim like Mansa Musa, who was revered. This man was so wealthy, as we know. And as he went through the Sahara, some of his masjids are still there. He donated. How about all the way through the Sahara? You have black people. So what is our brother talking about? The desert wasn't operating by white-skinned Arabs. They were about black people. So what is he talking about? And so I mentioned this because, again, we as Muslims, we must protect this Tohid, and you have to do it with knowledge. But you have to do it to even our brothers and sisters who are wayward. Yes, we argue with them, but we argue with them respectfully. But we also defend our religion. This is important, my brothers and sisters. We do this. Don't be afraid to say that you're a Muslim. Don't say that you hide behind the door. Now, I preface that by saying, I know what's happening in the United States. I became a Muslim when I was still working, but I declared myself, but I caught a lot of flack. I understand that. We understand that. We have provisions under the Sunnah that allow you to kind of hide that, to protect yourself and your family. We're not talking about that. We're talking about in instances where you can declare yourself that you're Muslim. You should do it. You should not be shameful of it. And when someone defames, especially, we have enough tubab to defame us to every day for hundreds of years. They be defaming us, but we should not have Africans going on YouTube TV in front of the world to defame our ancestors. Some of the Muslims who listened to that day, they should have jumped him. And one said he was a Muslim. He didn't jump him because he didn't know the answer to that. If I'd have been on the panel, I would have ate him a new one, because I would have said, look, you better go here and look at this here. And I would have gave him some parables to say, how do you figure this here? Look what this historian said about that, and look at the wealth of his country. If all the money was given to the Arabs, the white-skinned Arabs, how did his country prosper then? That's how I would have handled that. But I wasn't there. But again, I make these points to say you must protect Tohid. It's a jihad. You must protect it because you have many enemies, human and the devil. They're after you. And you know the Tubab is after you. The Tubab has changed all the religions. He's changed all except ours. And he's still at it. He's trying to change. He's killing. He's making war. He's doing all kinds of things to go at the brothers. Last thing on Tohid. We have a brother, and I want you guys to pray for him. His name is Bilal there in Syria. He's been there for many years. And our brother is a journalist. He created a newspaper in Syria, and he reports, and you see him in Twitter, and he's got some things in YouTube. And the U.S. government, now, our brother, he's African-American. He didn't advocate killing anybody. He doesn't carry a gun even to kill anybody. They threatened to kill him. They threatened to kill him because of Tohit. So he got a lawyer, and they found out the Americans have a kill list. Guess who's on those kill lists? Mostly African Americans. Yours truly is another one that's on this list. I haven't killed anybody. I haven't advocated the killing of anybody. And yet and still, there's not one white racist or white nationalist or supremacist on that kill list. Isn't that funny? Not one of them on that list for them to be killed. But people like me, because of Tohid, because of my status in Islam, and Bilal over there and others, they've already killed one Muslim. You remember that in Yemen, they used the drone. But yet and still, they don't put no white nationalists on any of the kill lists. They don't kill them. They don't even stop them from traveling. But they stop people like me from traveling. And Bilal, and he went to YouTube to talk about this. And the government came to him and said, look, you know what? Yeah, you exposed this, but we can still kill you at any time. This is our American government that did that. Because of Tohid. Because when you are a Muslim, you have thrown this tubab to the side. He doesn't like that. He wants you to continue to feel like you are a slave, that you worship him. I have to get into this to show you that Tohid, you have to keep it if you are African, if you melanated, because especially the three, the African American, the Pakistani American, and the Arab American. In particular, those three, you must maintain your Tohid because he's after all of us. The melanated people he's after. He wants to take you from your Tohid. We're the ones who he kills. It's us who he puts on the kill list, not the Tubab. He don't put them on the kill list. He put Pakistani Americans on it, African Americans on it, and Arabs. And he's killed the three groups. He's already killed the three groups. He's killed some because of Tohid. How many white nationalists has he killed in Idaho and all those compounds there? And now we got them on they got the recordings now. I've heard some in YouTube of the white nationalists talking about they're going to kill some people. Did they arrest him? No, they didn't. Now let me get on the tube here and start talking about me wanting to kill some Tubab. They'd be running to get me quickly. But the Tubab can talk, eat this hamburger from McDonald's and talk, yeah, I'm gonna do this to the black people. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna kill me one around the corner, and no one interdicts them. So again, I bring this because it is related. Tohid, maintaining, my brothers and sisters, even though it's a threat against you, you will be rewarded in the hereafter, because we know that the dunya is hell for the Muslims, and we'll have our reward in the akhirah. Keep that Tohid, because remember here, subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to measure you. He's going to say, look, you made a covenant with me before you were born. You said you were going to follow me, and he's going to look at you in your lifeline, in your lifetime. So maintain that, my brothers and sisters. Maintain that Tohid. So that's basically about it for today, my brothers and sisters. I will cover that. And I like to thank my nephew here for coming. And also he says here about, not to mention all of the I don't know what that word is. Oh, the Barbas here from Senegal down to Mali, who brought to the Americans during slavery, honor them. Yes, I think you're talking about, I'm not sure what you talked about there, honor them. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Our sister here, Amina, is talking about the firm belief that God Almighty in all things, and he is the glorified and exalted. Yes, my brothers and sister, you glorify subhanahu wa ta'ala in your dhikr. Do this every single day. Don't back off that. Keep that going. Get your dhikr. Even if you don't have prayer beads, I wish I had mine here. Use your fingers, and you just alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, and you say this. You take time, quiet time, 5-10 minutes, 30 minutes, and make dhikr Allah. And this is a great reward in that. And don't forget to keep that words of Subhanahu wa Ta'ala on your mouth. And even when you get ready to go to bed, you make some dhikr, you do the 3 afkars. That's another story. I told you about that a couple of weeks ago. And before you close your eyes to go to sleep, you say those things. Okay. My nephew said, mean that we tend to forget all the Muslims that were brought here in chains who kept their faith. Yes, my nephew's correct. We had many Muslims who were taken from Senegal, from all West Africa, and they still maintained their faith. That's important. That's very, very important. I'll get ready to close here. I talked last week about, because of DNA, my nephew, I have to credit him and my sister. They had their tests before I did, and they handed over some of information on one of my cousins and that we related to. And I've been enjoying my cousin almost every day. We've discussed many things, and I got many pictures of people that were related to through DNA. And they're from the Gambia region and Senegambia region, and also Baba, who is the father of our cousin here. I'd had a long conversation with him as well. And, we African people, we should try to find our DNA. It's important. Baba is a term many of you don't know. It's a term that the Africans use for our elders, and it's for respect. And I don't care if he's your father or you're not. He's an elder. You respect him. You call him Baba. This is what you should do. And this is what I call him, because he's almost my father's age. My father's passed on. So I call him Baba. And I talked to him for almost an hour. And I had a long conversation with him. And I have deep respect for him. And I'm hoping, inshallah ta'ala, I'll be able to meet him, because he said he wants to tell me many things about the family. And he's going to give us a long history. And I'm anxious to see this. And so when I do see him, I will definitely give him my respect, but I call him Baba because this is African tradition to do this and to have respect for our elders. And he's much older than me, and he's still living and he's still practicing. So I wanted to give you that, because that happiness is in my heart, because I found some of our ancestors now. And my cousin, I've been almost every day, we correspond, we talk about many issues. I've seen pictures. And this is a great thing, and it solidifies that we are African people, and so I'm happy for that. And so I want to thank everybody, my nephew, Mystic, my sister Amina, today for showing up, and my brothers and sisters there in the United States. Again, as always, please be careful. Okay, please be careful there, because you never know what's going to happen. You can be killed at any moment. It's just too much killing going on over there. And the virus is going away, but it's still there. The United States is under a judgment. You know that. And so be careful there. When you come out, as I always say, you be cognizant. When you get in the car, be very careful what you do. And if you do encounter a rogue Tuba policeman, be very careful. Try to be as respectful as you can. Don't give him any provocation to kill, to shoot, and you do what he tell you to do, and just be careful out there. Okay. And I say this again, and I'll be closing. My brothers and sisters who are parents, we have teenage sons and daughters. I believe that we should reinstitute the chaperone system again to protect them, because the police likes to prey on they see the young African-American man driving a nice car. He's driving Pop's car. They know they ferret out these, and they say, oh, look at this. Hey, look at this punk over here. So they go to stop him, and they egg him on, because they know that the youngsters have a way of getting mad. They egg him on until a confrontation occurs, and they shoot him. We know the story. I think we should go back now to going to chaperoning our children until this stuff blows over, which I don't believe is going to blow over in any time. But those who live in these war zones like this, I think our brothers, the men, the fathers, should begin to chaperone. There's no harm in that, my brothers and sisters. If you take your daughter, your son to McDonald's, at least they'd be safe, guarded to a point. The police would be more respectful when they see two in a car, especially father and son. But when they see a teenage boy, they seem to lick their chops, so to speak. They say, hey, look, we're going to kill us a black man tonight. Look, we got one. Look at these guys over here. They're going in the car here and they bait them, and you know what happens. We see this all the time. So just be careful out there. So my brothers and sisters, thank you for showing up on this class about Tohid. And I'll leave you with the beautiful words of Jannah. Salamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.